We are continuing to follow this as U.S. embassies and consulates across the Middle East instructed employees to shelter in place for a second day today as joint U.S.-Israel military strikes in Iran continue. And Iran launches missiles and drone strikes in retaliation. To speak more on this, I do want to bring in U.S. Navy veteran and former Florida Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, to talk more on this. And Paul, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Great to be with you.
So I do want to talk about the retaliation that we are continuing to see at this hour. Fox News reporting at least 8 people have died in a missile strike that Iran sent near Jerusalem. And right now we're taking a look at activity that we saw in Iran from earlier today in terms of the security angle as this retaliation continues. From your perspective, what is at the forefront?
Well, for success, you would look for that to degrade and cease in the near future. You have to say the first 24 hours was an amazing success. You listed off the stats, 10 top leaders, 40 what we call high value targets that is part of that regime change goal from yesterday. So the first 24 hours, 30 hours, I guess we're into now, has been very, very successful. But the fact that Iran is still responding means that there's still a command and control system. And so we're very much still in a situation where we have to continue pressing forward on the offense and destroy that ability to, one, defend themselves as we attack targets in Iran, and two, their ability to respond and retaliate. Although I would say the retaliation has worked against them because they're attacking other Gulf state nations that are responding and saying Iran's got to go. They're the bully in the block.
And President Trump taking to Truth Social, warning Iran against retaliation. He also shared in his initial statements, as we learned that the Supreme Leader was killed, among others, that this operation could be one of days and possibly weeks. From that standpoint, what are the next steps with the United States and also Israel?
Well, yes, I think there's a very active conversation happening with people. You mentioned the people who had been killed in the attack, but with the others, there's many, many high-value targets, people in leadership that have been identified over months and even years that we know who's in place there. And those conversations are likely taking place. Do you want to stay on that list and die, or do you want to come on board for a new Iran that is friendly to its neighbors, friendly to the United States? And so that is a very important diplomatic effort and military effort that's happening in secret right now, not in the public view, but is happening to determine who's going to say, hands up, and we're going to come over and be part of a new Iran.
And Paul, I did want to talk about this because, taking a step back, this was a very complex and well thought out mission between the United States and Israel. Can you walk us through the process leading up to this attack?
Well, it means months, if not years. I mean, there's an ongoing intelligence process as a former intelligence officer. And in the days and weeks leading up, you're starting to narrow down, if you're looking for those high value targets, where they go, their pattern of life, where they might sleep, where they might work. And I think it's significant, and I don't have any inside information, so I'm not sharing any. But the fact that it was a daytime attack, which is unusual and riskier for those that are in the planes that are making that attack, is probably indicative of the fact that they had places to hide at night where they thought the attack would come, or when they thought the attack would come, and they were less on guard during the day. And so that daytime attack, I suspect, was when we saw a window of time where we had the best opportunity to decapitate the evil regime that has been occupying Iran for 47 years.
And this is slightly different. President Trump had talked about hoping to use, diplomatic channels. Those did not go anywhere because Iran refused to come to the negotiating table, in tangent with the ongoing developments of this mission that the public was not yet aware of. Can you talk about the significance of the timing of this mission?
Well, it's essentially years long, decades long, going back to Obama. And I think that approach and Biden's approach was exactly wrong. Giving them money and giving them an ability and a leash to develop nuclear weapons was a horrible mistake and could have really cost us dearly. That's why we needed Midnight Hammer. But after Midnight Hammer, there was obviously an opportunity for the Iranians to find a diplomatic solution. We had proven that this president is willing to go in and make the necessary steps and military steps to stop a nuclear Iran. He's been crystal clear about that. They refused to accede to that and refused to have that conversation. And so he came to a point, and I think realistically, that this regime would never stop pursuing nuclear weapons. And that is a very, very dangerous place, a very dangerous world with a nuclear armed Iran with this regime in place. And so the president simply realized that it was time to move. The intelligence and military folks were giving him those options and those windows when it would be optimal to actually make the strike. And he pulled the trigger and gave the go-ahead, and it's been going very, very well. Our military is so talented, but that's really a sign that he realized that there was never going to be a diplomatic solution, and now we have the situation we have today.
And right now we're taking a live look at a scene where crews in Jerusalem are combing through some rubble after at least 8 people were killed after Iran sent a missile there striking. I did want to share with you and our viewers this new statement saying, quote, since the beginning of Operation Roaring Lion, the Iranian regime has been targeting civilians. We now know this is their strategy. In their recent attack, they killed many civilians in this community. The Iranian regime is a terror regime. I send my deepest condolences to the families. We will continue to do everything we can to remove these capabilities from this bloodthirsty terror regime. And that is someone from the Israeli army right there as we continue to take a live look. You know, we're hearing responses such as this when we hear those words of a terror regime, of, you know, a regime targeting civilians. What are the continuing concerns in the coming days, as likely there will be more strikes potentially on civilians?
Well, you can be sure that our military and the Israelis and anyone participating is trying to disable Iran's ability to make those strikes. That's got to be job one, as well as shutting off their air defenses, which I think has happened. And so that will happen over the next several days and continue to happen. As I said at the outset, once you see those counterattacks subside, we will know that their military's ability to counterstrike has been removed. Their command and control has been removed. And then it's a question of who in the leadership, who in the civil government wants to be part of a new Iran and who still wants to be on that high-value kill list.
And let's talk about that. President Trump was urging the people of Iran, saying, this is your time, you know, step up and take over. When it comes to the boots on the ground in Iran and, you know, maybe the civilians, you know, stepping up, what do you see happening in that area? Because I have to imagine the followers of the supreme leader do not want that.
Well, and this is where it becomes very difficult because the people who are in the country are different than those in the diaspora, those around the world who are former leadership. Now, it's a long time, been a long time, 47 years. There's not a lot of people that were in the old Iran, but people that could come in and build a strong new Iran are, in most cases, probably outside the country now. And so you have these student groups, you have others who are protesting. And speaking of a terrorist regime, they killed tens of thousands of their own people. That comment was spot on, but it's going to be difficult to find in country those people who are ready to stand up a new Iran. That's why it's so important to try to bring some of those people in the current government, as bad as they may be, or as much as they may have been involved in bad actions at the behest of the regime. You've got to bring in some of the existing infrastructure. This is a mistake we made in Iraq. And after that war of saying anybody that was involved in Saddam Hussein has to leave, and it caused the whole government to collapse. And then you need boots on the ground, Americans there for years and years. We don't want more endless wars. I certainly don't. And so we do need, and this is the most difficult thing I think of what we've talked about, is standing up that new civil society, that new government, people who will not be threats to their neighbors or the U.S.
And Paul, speaking of a new regime, my producer, Julianne, just handed me this breaking news saying Iran's foreign minister says that a new supreme leader will be chosen in 1 or 2 days. That's according to the Associated Press. What do you make of that?
I think that's an effort to show strength on their part, that they're going to continue and just have a succession of power and all will continue as normal. And that's why I think, we're only at the beginning of this. There's no, carrier landing of mission accomplished. We're very, very early in this process. And the military piece of this is still very much ongoing to disable the regime, to continue to decapitate the regime. And so they can name somebody. Guess what? They're going to get on that list, and they can either get immunity or be on that high-value target list.
And that is exactly what President Trump was stating. As we've, take a look at the moment happening right now, there were a lot of discussions previously leading up to this moment. Is this the best time that there could be significant change in Iran? Is it now?
Well, there's no doubt that there have been conversations both diplomatically outside the United States and through our intelligence services within Iran for months and years, identifying those people that could take over in the event that the regime collapsed, even on its own without military intervention. And so whether it's the best time or not, it's a combination of those things, Stephanie. It's, it's a military, what's optimal from a military standpoint, where the diplomatic, efforts have ceased to function. And you have to put all of those factors together and decide that with every consideration, this is the optimal consideration or the optimal time for us to hit the go button. That's what President Trump did. He's been very decisive in numerous conflicts in Venezuela, of course, in Iran. And I have every confidence in the administration's ability to act at the optimal time. And so we have to just see how this plays out over the coming weeks, and hopefully to a more secure and a less threatening Iranian regime. They're the biggest threat to the U.S. as a state sponsor of terror in the last half century.
And Paul, before we let you go, anything else that you would want to share with our viewers as we continue to follow all of these developments?
I served over in Afghanistan for a year in that conflict. I was an intel officer over there, and we had IEDs that the local Taliban had made that we had been able to stop from harming our vehicles. The Iranians were sending in, very advanced shaped charges that could penetrate those and do lasting damage. So many of the killed and maimed American servicemen and women are at the behest and at the direction of this leadership. They have to go. They have blood on their hands, American blood, and that goes all the way back to the 1983 bombing of the barracks in the Marine barracks in Lebanon, as well as the 1979 hostage situation. As soon as they took power, they took hostages, and they have been a threat to Americans ever since that time. And so good riddance to this regime.
All right, Paul Renner, U.S. Navy veteran, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.